You're slinging freebies faster than a diner waitress, dishing up omelets, and your email list still isn't growing the way you need it to. Or maybe you're just sick of freebies and you don't know what you want to create for your audience, and your audience doesn't really even seem to want a freebie. Maybe it doesn't even make sense for what you do. But this much you do know. You want the right people to join your email list, people who engage, click, buy from you, without spending hours cooking up another freebie. The problem? You've only ever been told how to grow your email list using freebies, and sometimes all that does is give you a list full of freebie collectors, not future clients. Today, I'll teach you what I call my easy email strategy. That's exactly like it sounds. A super, super easy way to get the right people, and I'm talking a lot of people, probably more than you could get with a freebie, to join your email list without having to hand out any freebies, PDFs, or webinars. We'll talk about the kind of newsletter you need, how to position it, and how to get people to join. Sounds good? Let's dive in. Welcome back to On Your Terms. I'm your host, Sam Vander, Wielen, and On Your Terms is a podcast for online business owners who want to be as present in their lives as profitable in their businesses. And so much of that has to do with email list building, because if you have a robust email list, and it doesn't have to be huge, we talked about that in part 1 of this series, but if you have an email list, there are so many more possibilities for you to grow your business and continue to make consistent income without you having to be tied to your phone or be constantly on social media. It's why I feel so passionate about email list building. And I shared in part 1 of this series about how having my email list and nurturing that email list for so long is really what allowed me to be able to take so much time and space, both like when I had brain surgery, when my dad was sick and I was caring for him, when my dad passed away and I was grieving, when my mom passed away right afterwards and I was still grieving even more. So my email list really to me is like the thing that I feel the most indebted to and thankful for in my business. And so just to quickly recap, in part 1 of this 4-part email list building series, you can go back and listen to that one later. You don't necessarily need it for this one, but it's definitely a must listen. We talked about how I have adopted this all roads lead to the email list mindset, this mentality, this ethos within my business, where we look for email list building opportunities everywhere in our businesses. And we declare both to ourselves and like to the world that email list building is a priority for us. And so we're going to treat it as such. So here's what then normally happens when you start an online business and you hear that like building an email list is important. You might have heard me talk about it in the past and you're like, okay, I get it. But the way that you've been taught up until now, or traditionally, like most of the big people in this industry, they just still teach this like one way of doing it. The way that you've been taught is that you're to offer a freebie, right? Something free in exchange for someone's email address, which then, ideally would send them into some sort of what we call a nurture sequence, a welcome sequence. So a series of emails that goes to them, kind of orienting them to who you are and what you do, but also maybe walking them down a path so that then you pitch. Sometimes even people pitch a sale at the end of this nurture sequence, or it dumps them onto your email list, right? So that's sort of the typical pathway, is just like freebie, nurture sequence, onto your email list. And then on your email list, I think this is personally where a lot of people then get confused. They're like, well, what do I do after that? Do I just like start selling to them? Do I like run a sale every week? Like, do I talk about my products? How often? How much is too much, right? We're going to talk about that as the series goes on. But here's the thing, like that method, that pathway, it still works. There's nothing broken within the freebie to nurture sequence to email method. I still use it also in my business. And we're actually going to talk about freebies next week and sort of how to build out the best freebie that your people actually want, how to design a freebie that people want so that people opt into it, and then how to use those freebies to get the right people onto your email list. So we're going to talk about kind of like freebies 2.0 next week, because there's definitely still a way to do it and to do it right. But the point of today's episode and this part 2 of our 4-part series is to talk about this easy email strategy, because there is another way. There's a way that instead of offering freebies in order to get people onto your email list, there is a way that I I've started doing many years ago, where people go straight onto your email list. But here's the thing. Here's the big, big, big takeaway. If you're going to listen to me about anything today, this is it. All right. Are you ready? Okay. You can go straight to your email list, meaning that you can pitch your email list as the thing that people are going to sign up for if your email itself is valuable, right? So the email is the value. That's essentially the mindset shift that I want you to take here, is that instead of offering a PDF guide or a webinar or whatever, this time we're positioning your email as being so valuable that somebody should give you their email address to start getting it, right? That's the idea. I call this method easy email because honestly, I came up with this a million years ago and was just like, I just want to make it easy for people to get on my email list. Like, what if people could just start getting my emails, because my emails themselves are really good. And I do the work in my weekly emails to make sure that I talk about my products, I talk about my customers and their transformation. I talk about what I do. I deliver a ton of value. So yes, while it is also still super helpful to have people go down a nurture sequence, it's also can be really helpful to just get people onto my list, because like I feel confident with my emails that I'm like, once I get people there, I know I can do the work. I can get them in the right place. Honestly, I find this method very refreshing, and also to just be a great email list builder. It just like cuts out a lot of the middleman. It cuts out a lot of the fluff of like, think about it. If you're going to go down the freebies route, you have to design a great freebie, have a great opt-in page. Then when you get to that opt-in page, I mean, people's opt-in rates on a page, like the number of people who go to that page versus the number of people who opt in, are like 30%, 40%, maybe 50%, right? So you're losing a lot of people just from people going over and clicking on that page. Then we have to get them to actually get that initial email. That's a whole hurdle. Let's hope it doesn't end up in spam. Let's hope it doesn't go to promotions. Let's hope it doesn't do whatever else, right? Now you're going to send them a series of like 3, 6, 9 emails over however many days. We lose a lot of people that way, right? We get people to get freebies and then they bounce. Maybe they start getting these emails and they just realize they got the freebie and they don't need anything anymore. So they leave, right? So that's a way that we attract a lot of freebiers, like freebie hanger-oners, right? And that's not what we want. We need your business to grow. We need you to get the right people in. Of course, not everybody who comes in is going to buy or be a customer one day, but I think that as a business owner, your goal should be that that's the goal, right? Like the goal is you're a business and you're to get people to come in who hopefully eventually need what you have, knowing that not everyone will, but like that's the aim, right? It'd be like if Target started like a marketing campaign that they're like, we just want to get more people to come into the store to walk around, but like we hope that they don't buy anything, right? No, Target doesn't care. They just want to get people in the door who buy something. The people who come in like me for the toilet paper and leave with like 6 blankets. So that's the idea here. And that's okay for you to adopt this mentality of like, I want the right people to be here because I am a business, I am a business owner, and I am offering a shit ton of value in exchange for, yes, selling something, God forbid, right? It's okay. It's okay to sell something and give value in exchange. If you haven't yet, make sure you go down in the show notes and click the link to download the free workbook that I've created for you for this How to Build an Email List series. Because in this workbook, I'm not only outlining every single thing that I'm talking about in this episode so that you don't need to take notes, so you can put the pen down, your hand can stop cramping. I've put it all for you in a free workbook. I've also added sections for you anywhere in this episode where I've prompted you to reflect on something or to keep track of data. I have put all of those sections into a free workbook for you, all about how to build your email list. So click the link in the show notes to download the free workbook now. So there are really 2 steps to my easy email strategy. The first one is designing the newsletter itself so that we can really make sure that we position this in a way that, makes it seem so valuable to other people. And it's very clear to the people listening and watching what exactly they're opting in for and why they should care and why it's going to help them. The second step that we'll talk about is then how to promote it. So once we've designed this thing and you feel really comfortable and confident about what it's for, then we will talk about going out into the world and how do we then actually get people to join your email list using this easy email list strategy. Let's start with step number 1, your newsletter. Now, depending on whether you've started a newsletter already or you kind of have something that's similar to this, you might be listening to me in this section and thinking of how to zhuzh, right? You might be zhuzhing a bit of what you have and figuring out like, oh, I'm like 80% of the way there, but I see how I can just tweak a couple of things in order to make this work even better. Others might be listening to this and thinking, oh, wow, my email has been really different and I'm going to build out something different. So this is for both of you. It doesn't matter either way. Maybe you'll even come up with a new idea. First, we have to get clear about a number of things. We have to be really clear about who your newsletter is for. What do you talk about there, right? What are the topics? Is there something exclusive that you talk about on your emails, for example, that you don't share elsewhere? Is it a different part of like, do you share like more strategy stuff there? Whereas on social media, you're sharing more behind the scenes and just what I call walk the walk content, like showing your clients how you do what you teach them how to do. That's my best social media strategy tip. But with your emails, like, is there something that's different about them? Is there something exclusive that you're going to offer them? That's all something to think about. And I have a little like sentence prompt for you in a second that might be helpful for spelling this out. You can also think about what kind of overall concept is this newsletter? Do you want this to look more like a newspaper where it has sections, maybe like different boxes and yeah, like kind of a layout similar to a magazine or a newspaper? Or is this more an essay driven newsletter where it's a lot of writing and maybe a few links? Is it some combination of the two, right? Which is probably what I would consider my weekly newsletter, Sam's Sidebar, to be. If you don't get that, by the way, the link is in the show notes. You should get Sam's Sidebar. And below my essay, as you'll see, if you get Sam's Sidebar, below the essay are a couple of sections that I would recommend. I mean, some of them I would recommend no matter what kind of newsletter style you choose. Like one of them, for example, is a kind of like a next step or like here's how to get started or resources section. You can call it whatever you want. Maybe it's a welcome section. Essentially, I want you to think of it as if your business, your online business was a storefront. If someone came in, like what would the options be available to them? Not just in terms of products, but what else do you have to offer, right? So mine, for example, would be like a link to listen to this podcast because I want people to know I have a podcast called On Your Terms and I want to start orienting them to that, whenever they're on my email list. There's a link to another freebie that I have because I think about the fact that so many people come in using my easy email list strategy that they haven't gotten something free from me. So yes, my email itself is valuable, but I can also offer them like a guide, for example. So there's a link to the guide. There's a link to my free legal workshop because that's my most popular offering, 5 steps to legally protect and grow your online business. So there's a link there. And of course, I do include a link to my products. So you can always check out towards the bottom of my essay, you'll see this section there. But I highly recommend that for you if you have a podcast or a YouTube channel or Substack, like whatever your kind of main marketing channel is, have a link to that, maybe to one freebie, to your discovery call, to one of your products. Have a couple of links there, kind of like a get to know me. This is a good place to get started section. Now, we're going to talk about this a lot more in part 4 of this series, but I want to talk to you about outward bound links or designing, at least for the purposes of this episode, like the idea of designing a newsletter that has a lot of stuff that goes elsewhere, like to other people's stuff or links and resources, right? I've kind of gone all over about this. Like when I started Sam's Sidebar, I thought I want to be like a resource depot, right? So like I'm the person that you come to when you want to know where, what things to sign up for, what legal stuff's going on, like what are the best products out there, yada, yada. But the more that I did that, the more I realized I didn't want to do that because you're sending people to other people's stuff a lot. And while it's helpful and valuable to do that at times, I don't personally think it's a great weekly practice if you have your own business and have your own stuff to sell. So personally, I would rather use those links most of the time to send people to my other, like my cornerstone content. So I'd rather let the people on my email list know about this episode coming out this week. Or some YouTube video that I did, or even a podcast episode I was on somebody else's podcast, right? To help not only support that podcast host, but also that's an opportunity for them to go hear me have a conversation about maybe a topic that I haven't shared here. Now, of course, time to time, either people ask me or there are things that I feel really passionately about that I want to support, and I do that. So it's like, of course, this is all to your discretion, but I would just caution you. I think maybe it comes from this good place of people feeling like, oh, I want to be really valuable. So I'm going to just like dump a bunch of links in here and like show them all this stuff. Or I don't know, maybe this is where like influencer culture has leaked in a little bit to what we do, where it's like we don't have to be influencers. We don't have to have Amazon links and like sections to all this like stuff that you buy, unless of course that's what you do and that's what you help people do. One person I'm thinking of in particular is my friend and RD Erin Parekh, who has a great newsletter and a great Substack where she, teaches people about nutrition and a healthy lifestyle. And so she will have sections where she links to recipes and the tools, the kitchen tools that are helping her to get meal prep done or that are helping her daughter Lena or something like this, right? That is a value because the people Erin's trying to attract are trying to figure out, like she, for the most part, attracts a lot of, busy moms, working professionals, and they're trying to figure out how am I going to get my meal prep done? I don't know what to make for dinner this week. So therefore, Erin is resolving a problem, right? And so she is becoming the person that they are going to. She also, though, has a paid newsletter on Substack. So people are paying to get that information. It's not a free newsletter, technically speaking. She has some free issues, and I recommend going and signing up for her Substack. It's great. But yeah, point being that I think that there are situations where it's helpful to be a resource, or maybe you pick like once a month, you do some sort of roundup and some sort of product thing where you're showing people like these are the tools. I guess what I would encourage you to do though is to think more about the knowledge that you have behind those tools. So like, for example, if you're linking out to the products like the kitchen tools that help you to do meal prep the best, like what is it about meal prep that's so helpful? What are your other meal prep secrets? Not just like the containers that you're using, but like, can you help me overcome an objection that I have that meal prep takes 6 hours on a Sunday and I don't have that time? Or that I get bored of eating the same thing. Like, let's like work some of your knowledge, your uniqueness, right, into this. Like, what is the thing that you have to offer that the link to Amazon doesn't offer, right? So that's kind of my 2 cents personally on like linking out like lots of outbound links and like becoming a resource and all that kind of stuff. As you're designing this newsletter, that can just sometimes become the default, and I want you to give some thought to that. More than anything, I want you to think of your newsletter as something that's very regular and predictable. So we're going to tap into a little Norm story here. For those of you who are new to the show or my world, Norm is my father, who's unfortunately passed away from leukemia, but he's my best friend still. And he always talked about predictability. And so I'm from Philly originally and grew up in South Jersey. And my dad's favorite diner was this diner called Ponzio's in Cherry Hill, New Jersey. In case you've ever been, it's amazing. Get the eggplant parm. And we would go there all the time, but specifically, we would go there pretty much every Monday night as a family. This was really important because, as an aside, because my parents got divorced when I was like less than a month old. So my parents were best friends my entire life. And so there was like no drama, no fighting. They just really were best friends, just like not marriage material. So we would meet up at Ponzio's. And so for me, these are like my greatest memories. Like I like can close my eyes and be in that booth in a moment and tell you my exact order, which was a cup of vegetable soup, eggplant parm, and a side of mashed potatoes and peas, which I then mixed together. And so, like any normal person would. So anyway, when we would go here and have dinner together, like clockwork, Norm would turn to us at some point in the dinner and say, the thing is, it's just always the same. The predictability makes us come back every week. And it's just like, it was just kind of funny because it became also like a side joke that it was predictable that my dad would say that every single week. Like he would literally just say it every week. But he was right. Like we went back there because still to this day, I've been going to Ponzio's for now 37 years. That eggplant parm tastes exactly the same as when I was a child. There's something about the comfort of predictability and consistency and people just knowing what to expect. This doesn't mean that you can't iterate and you can't invent and you can't, change if something's not working for you. But I think the idea and the goal here is that there's a feel, a vibe, right, of what it really means to get your weekly newsletter. So I want you to think about that as you're building it out. I'm also saying this because I want you to also commit to doing this newsletter consistently. I hope once a week if you can, but consistently and not looking at the results quite yet. Like you have to stick to something and try it for a while to really tell whether or not it's working. And as I say here, I feel like almost every week on the show, you have to be really careful about what stories you come up with about the results that we're talking about. So when we talk about how, you start sending out this newsletter and I don't know, like let's say at first nobody is responding. It would be really easy to come up with a story that's because nobody likes this newsletter. Or sometimes people will even pull out really, I do this too. I'm not blaming everybody else, but we can come up with really, really specific stories like nobody's responding to this newsletter because I put this new section in it, or something like that. Sometimes there are things that we are nervous about, which we then like project onto other people and we come up with these stories. So I'm bringing up also this reliability, predictability thing and consistency as well, because you kind of have to be consistent for a period of time to really give it some time to gel. And it's also okay if you're trying something new, if you're changing your newsletter and this is going to be a different strategy for you, everybody might not like it. And that's okay. There's nothing that you're going to create that everyone's going to like. So that's okay. Now, speaking of something that becomes regular and familiar, it's really hard to get regular and familiar with something that doesn't have a name. I'm a big fan of naming your newsletter because I like that it kind of becomes its own asset in and of itself. Like it's a thing, right? Instead of just saying like, get on my email list or get my emails, get my weekly newsletter, when it starts to become a thing, it has a name, you can then start saying like, join Sam's Sidebar. That's my weekly newsletter where people go to hear my weekly tips about how to build an online business that allows them to be as present in their life as profitable in their businesses, right? So I'm telling you who it's for. I'm telling you what you get. I can kind of describe the flavor of like who hangs out there and what it's all about. And as I mentioned earlier, this is where you can kind of use a little bit of a sentence prompt to create your own tagline once you've named your newsletter. So you could say like a newsletter for blank, who it's for, to blank. Get some sort of result or expectation, or like one of the ways I like to think about this is we're the kind of people who do X, or like we're the kind of people who don't do X, right? Like this is what it means to hang out here. This is what it means to be a part of our community. I always think about Apple in its earliest days. And when Apple started, it really started as an alternative, obviously, to PCs and Windows and everything. But it started as like a cultural revolution of like what it meant to be the kind of person who adopted Apple technology when the rest of the world was using PCs. And so that's something that I like to think about here is like, what's my Apple moment? Like, what does that mean for me? I mean, this is particularly, I guess, important to me where uniqueness is really important to me and I want it to be different. And part of my brand is to be like, I'm not like everybody else. I don't do things the way everybody else does it. I don't follow the conventional quote unquote wisdom. And we do our own thing around here. And I hope to attract people who also want to do their own thing and live life on their terms. That's why I named the podcast this. So yeah, that you can think about how that translates to you, but try to integrate some of that into your newsletter positioning. Last but not least, we have to create an opt-in page for your newsletter. So some of the most important things about creating an opt-in page for your newsletter, which by the way, I recommend having an opt-in page that you create specifically for this easy email list strategy, meaning that there's no freebie. They're literally opting in to just start getting your newsletter. For me, the biggest thing is having a really strong heading that kind of is a summary or a punchier version of what we just talked about. And I also think that it's really important that the opt-in box is really high up on the page, especially on mobile, for example. I'm really adamant that the opt-in box is above the fold, so they can, as soon as somebody essentially like opens this page on their phone, the opt-in box is above, like you can see the opt-in box on your phone. So that's really important. I always like to have a section that's like who this is for, who it's not for, or like this is not what you can expect here, but this is what you can expect here. I think that's a great way to uniquely differentiate yourself from the market and probably dispel a bunch of, rumors or assumptions about you and your industry and what you teach. Last but not least, if you've been featured anywhere, if you have some street cred of like places you've spoken or podcasts you've been on or publications you've been featured in, I think it's really helpful to have some social proof of that variety. You can also add social proof, or if you don't have that other kind of social proof, you can add social proof from your readers. So get quotes from people about why they would recommend other people sign up for your newsletter. What do they think is so great about it? What do they love about it? And get those as testimonials and put that on your page. Okay, now that we've sort of designed our newsletter and we've thought about being predictable and regular and we've named it and given it a tagline and created a page for it, now it's time to go out and actually promote it. So let's talk about step number 2, promoting your easy email list sign up. One of the easiest ways to start promoting this easy email list concept is in your Instagram stories if you use Instagram. If not, don't worry about it. I have tons of other ideas coming for you, but I just find Instagram stories in particular to be like a great testing ground for this because since we're saying that your emails themselves are valuable, I just think it's a really great opportunity to use Instagram to visually display the email itself. So like instead of you maybe having shown a freebie, we're now showing the email, right? So I personally really like doing it on Instagram stories. The way that I find works best is that, okay, so let's say my Sam Sidebar comes out every single Tuesday. So several days before, whenever I'm working on it, I will show myself working on it visually, right? If I'm at a coffee shop or at my in my office, and like showing me writing it, maybe lowering the exposure so people can't quite read it, and you can put like text that pops over it. And so you're showing this, but you're talking throughout those, like writing, not physically talking, but you're talking throughout those stories about the topic you're going to be writing about in that week's issue. So maybe I would show mine and I would say like, for example, a couple of weeks ago, I did an episode and a Sam Sidebar issue about online privacy. And so I started the Instagram story by saying, this is true. The other day I was teaching a training for someone's community, and someone brought up the fact that they were concerned that their address could be public. And I said to them, what state do you live in? And like, do you have an LLC? She said, yes. And she told me the state. I said, what's the name of your business? I said, hang on one sec. It literally, I would say it took me less than 20 seconds. I said, do you live at 123 Fake Street in Boise, Idaho? And she's like, yes. And I was like, yep, your home address was used to register your business, so I can see it right here. And so it took me less than 2 seconds to find it. Imagine, if somebody was really determined how they could find it. So I shared this in my Instagram story and then said in the next slide, people accidentally register their online businesses all the time using information that they don't know is public. Next slide. That's why this week, in Sam Sidebar, my weekly newsletter that 55,000 online business owners get to learn how to grow their online business, I'm talking about ways to keep your online business safe. And then I would just have a call to action that says, I use ManyChat, for example, so that's where people can comment a word and it automatically triggers a link being sent to them. And so I said, comment sidebar, and I'll send you a link to sign up for my weekly newsletter now. I got so many signups that way. So there are a couple of things I like about this strategy. One is that you're visually showing the newsletter. Like as I was doing these Instagram stories, I was physically, showing kind of the sections of my email, like recording on my phone, of my laptop, that kind of stuff. The second thing I like about this is that I'm going to hook people who like what I'm talking about because I'm literally telling them what I'm going to talk about. And then the third thing I like about this is that when you do it this way, and like if you can get in a nice weekly rhythm of doing it this way, you can lean on some urgency in order to get people to sign up for your email list, which is not something that people typically have to sign up for an email list. Like there's usually no reason why, like, oh, I got to get on this person's list unless someone's like more like a physical product and they're running a sale, right? So what I like about this is that we kind of bought into this urgency idea of like, hey, I'm writing this really great email that's going out on Tuesday about how to protect your personal privacy when you own an online business. You have to comment sidebar here now in order to get it on Tuesday. And I think I shared maybe 1 or 2 more times before Tuesday to be like, hey, this issue is coming out on Tuesday. So like comment now to make sure you get it. And because we've removed this middleman of them having to go down some long onboarding sequence, they're going to get a welcome email. We'll talk about that in the last episode of the series, but they are going to just start getting my weekly emails. And so it's this great way to like inject a little urgency into it. Now, of course, you can take this Instagram stories strategy and you can use this anywhere else within your content, no matter what social media platform you're on. If it's LinkedIn, X, Threads, Facebook, I guess, anywhere else that people are hanging out these days, TikTok, I don't know, any other place I probably don't feel like being. So you can take this and you can turn it into the same concept. I think the concept is the same: to visually display what exactly you're selling, use storytelling, and then use a little urgency to say like, you have to comment here to get this issue on Tuesday, Wednesday, whatever day you send it out. You can do the same thing when it comes to creating your content for your feed as well. So you could create a talking head reel or a carousel on Instagram or Threads or anywhere else. And then the call to action is to opt in to your email list. Once you have that opt-in page design that we talked about that goes directly to your newsletter, I highly recommend having it as a call to action in your social media links as well. If you go to my Instagram profile, you will see that the primary link is to sign up for my newsletter. And when you click on that, it takes you to my newsletter page. I also recommend having calls to action added for this easy email list strategy, added all over your website, in your email signature, and even like when you're on podcasts or teaching trainings in people's communities, that can be the call to action is like, from here, you should sign up for my weekly newsletter called X for X to do X. If you have that tagline down and you have a couple of easy talking points about like who it's for and why they should sign up, it's going to make this all so much easier. So that in a nutshell is my easy email list strategy. This is a way that I'm adding thousands and thousands of people to my email list every single year. And I know when I taught about this strategy at Kit's Craft and Commerce conference that I spoke at back in June, and then I did an email list building workshop after my keynote, this was the thing that so many people came up to me about afterwards. And then this is the thing that so many people have reached out to me about afterwards, saying that this is what they want to do and that it was working. So I would give it a shot. I want you to report back and let me know how it's going. If you're still in the freebies camp, or you're still like, well, I also want to have a freebie and kind of like split the baby like I do. So I have the easy email list strategy, but I also still rely on freebies. Next week, we are talking about freebies, and we will either design one from scratch together, or we will completely optimize and revamp and refresh the ones that you have so that they actually work and attract the right people. If you liked this episode or you're enjoying this series, would you please do me a favor and let a friend know, somebody else in your life who is interested in starting an online business or who wants to grow an email list? Maybe share it about it on social media, include a link to it in your newsletter. It's the easiest and fastest way and the best way that you can help me and the show to grow and to get into more hands, which is my number one goal, both this year in 2025 and in 2026. This podcast is my priority and my pride and joy. So with that, I hope that you will DM me on Instagram at Sam Vander Wielen, or you will reply to one of my emails, maybe one of my easy emails, and you will let me know what you thought about this episode and how you're enjoying the series so far. I hope that you like it. If you have any questions following up from it, of course, just reach out to me. But with that, I really appreciate you listening, and I can't wait to chat with you next week for part 3 of this 4-part email list building series. Thanks so much for listening to the On Your Terms podcast. Make sure to follow on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, or wherever you like to listen to podcasts. You can also check out all of our podcast episodes, show notes, links, and more at samvanderwielen.com/podcast. You can learn more about legally protecting your business and take my free legal workshop, 5 Steps to Legally Protect and Grow Your Online Business at samvanderwielen.com. And to stay connected and follow along, follow me on Instagram at Sam Vander Wielen and send me a DM to say hi.